Стремительный и зачастую болезненный исход в цифру, который многие компании совершили в 2020 году в условиях пандемии, стал началом фундаментальной перестройки экономики. Ну а сейчас, в условиях стремительно меняющихся...
The rapid and often painful process of digital transformation undertaken by many companies back in 2020 because of a pandemic was the beginning of a fundamental restructuring in the economy. And now, in the rapidly changing economic conditions, it is important for companies to understand how much they are prepared for change, because their company's success depends on the readiness. Today, businesses are urgently reviewing investment budgets, speeding up decision-making processes, working in import independence, selecting goals and following only those that are necessary for survival. Today's world of business is so unpredictable and changing so rapidly that even these companies often get puzzled and do not know what to do. It is quite clear that changes are necessary, but how deep should they be? And now, how quickly should they be implemented? And in general, which changes are needed? I invite Artyom Tunjan, head of MZDA. Alexei Parabuchev, Director General of Foundation, Moscow Innovative Cluster. The applause are in order when the speakers are coming to the stage. Alexander Pavlov, Director General of the Russian Foundation of Development of Informational Technologies. Dmitry Chuiko, Director General of Whoosh. And of course, moderator of our session, Kirill Kayen, Senior Vice President on Innovations of Skolkovo Foundation. Kirill, I give floor to you. Thank you very much. Good day, everybody. You're really great, because you're surviving in this weather today. I really believe that we need to move Startup Village to August, considering that this is an open event. Open-air event. But the country is living. I actually took my jacket here. I'm going to put it somewhere over here. And despite the cold, we are still here. The country is still living and surviving. And we can see that the shocking events are shaking our country, speaking about emotional, geopolitical and economic conditions. However, Startup Village is still conducted, St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is still conducted, and all of these events have a absolutely new agenda. Recently, we have been saying that we need to look for innovations which are going to be implemented in 5 years, in 3 years, and we will have the leading position on international markets, on Russian markets. But now we are not thinking about that long-term conditions, because we need to be focused on specific tasks which actually appears very suddenly ahead of us. And Skolkovo and other development institutes are focusing on solving everyday tasks and everyday requirements. Of course, we will get back to absolutely new products, deep tech, but now we need to focus on this import replacement. So basically the topic of our today's meeting, the main idea of Startup Village agenda as of now. And when this whole thing began, we did understand that we need to change. And during the first days, in the end of February, in the beginning of April, we tried to gather the big companies and to understand what has to be changed, what technologies are going to be most demanded. And the first answer was the silence, because the shock was so urgent and many companies didn't even understand what technologies have to be replaced as of now. And starting from the end of March, maybe in the April, a decent corporate orders have been forming to replace various products. And this is the topic of our discussion here and now, what corporations are requiring right now. We have the development institutes here, and we have the companies and corporations here. We as development institutes are changing our support tools in order to focus on the replacement technologies. And once again, let us speak to Artyom first of all. MZDA, Artyom. It's a very interesting company indeed, and you are both the industrial company, and on the other hand, your clients are the industrial companies which are requiring these technologies, and you have your own developments in the center. And if we take a look at what is happening right now, the shock effect is passing a bit, and your customers and you yourself understand better what is required. So are there any opportunities for the markets, or are there risks there right now? We'll have problems because the gray import is growing and it doesn't depend on the decisions of regulator. Parallel import is going to be allowed by the regulator. So won't we have this situation when the gray channels through different Eastern countries or Chinese imports is going to replace what you can take over in the market?
Kirill, thank you for giving me the floor. So how much time do I have according to the schedule? Because I can speak for a whole hour. So how many details do I need to provide? You have about around 7 minutes. So our company, as Kirill stated, it's a group of companies. We're producing equipment, hardware and software. And for the current stage of import substitution, and by the way, import substitution can be divided into several stages. So it's a declared policy of the state starting from 2014. But in fact, it was import saturation. And now from the bottom up, that demand is there for import substitution starting March this year. And we approach this stage prepared. We registered our startup. We developed our digital platform for industrial companies using grant support of the Skolkovo and the Ministry of Digital Transformation. And now we can offer a very relevant product that replaces imported automation systems for various companies, for agricultural companies, industrial companies, etc. To answer a question in specific terms, in terms of parallel imports and gray schemes, we are confident that our technologies are not worse in any sense, and we are at the same level with some of the imported. Perhaps some functionalities can be tweaked and improved, but we talk about 10 to 15%, and we'll be able to do it quickly. And let me give you some specific cases, not to be theoretical about this. You know Visma? This is the largest supplier of gas boilers, and they use automation. They imported those automation systems that were specifically developed, that controllers, by Siemens. You know Siemens. So Siemens, because of the sanctions, refused to supply those controllers to Russia. So that pioneering company, Visma, they realized that they were going to lose their business because without control systems, their boilers would be useless. So they came to us, not just ourselves, it was no secret. They contacted various companies, but selected us as being the most advanced company. So to develop those controllers for them, so we offer temporary solutions now, but we'll develop controllers specifically for them. So we're at the final stage of signing that agreement. And there's some other examples. So there's a Russian company. And that illustrates how much we were prepared for gray imports and parallel imports. You know NLMK, steel company. So they contacted us, among others, and before visiting our companies, they came to two conclusions that they shared with us. So they never thought that there might be Russian developers of automation systems. They had no such idea. So in the current situation, basically was a total U-turn. Now they look at local developers, and then they were impressed because what we produce is no worse. It's totally at the level. Of course, some functionality needs to be developed. I will be able to do it quickly. To summarize my answer, I'll be brief. So we are not afraid of parallel imports or great schemes because we're confident we are able to offer to the Russian economy, to all the sectors of Russian economy, high quality, contemporary, modern, radio electronic components and hardware, and software as well. So it starts with the client. So there's a partner out there that started looking for those solutions, like an LMK, but you understand the landscape of the industry from your side. You know that Those who were supplying automation systems from unfriendly countries, they stopped it. So you develop new products as a result, for instance, substitution. Of course, we have been very proactive in the last 20 years. Our clients, if we talk about major companies, so let me respond to that. To speaking of the essence of this issue, if we talk about utilities, municipalities, the automation is much cheaper there. It's easier to enter that market. If we talk about large industrial companies, you do not enter that market via a plant, but via a supplier of equipment. Let's say NLMK, they want to have a rolling facility for steel products, so they buy the whole technology somewhere in the West. So that includes algorithms and other things. So it's hardware and software. So they would not let us join that in the past, but now in the current conditions we can access directly the consumer that is dependent on the Western suppliers. So now they need our help. So when they would offer something to them, say we don't need it because we have it, things work. So it's more expensive, but we feel confident about it. Now they're not confident anymore. So when they have rolling line, they were confident about. But now we are very proactive and we work with them and we contact potential clients. So until now, they would refuse to, and they would tell them we were Skolkovo residents, we get support, etc. And designers were outside of Russia, but they were planning for foreign equipment, for foreign technologies, etc., etc. So basically, you work with institutes, design institutes, which are your clients, yes. But or direct clients, they tell design institutes. So you plan. So when planning is done, you should plan for Russian-made equipment. So that's a large company, but smaller businesses, they may have more flexibilities, but their capacity is also smaller. So Alexei Parabachev, you have many types of support, and smaller companies, SMEs, which would use equipment and technologies which used to be imported. Now they're facing that difficult situation. So like when you have a rolling steel line, so how you can help them, and what Moscow does to help those companies. It's one of the key issues today, because Moscow Innovation Cluster Foundation receives a lot of queries. We used to have a supplier, and now we do not know what to do. How can we continue with our business? Because they do not deliver the products to the Russian market anymore. Or maybe there is a gray scheme and prices is really higher. On the other hand, we have a major database of companies, smaller companies that in their garage, let's say, so to speak, have some small-scale production, not a serial production. And they would produce products which are not there in the market anymore, and there's a demand for them. And one of the key objectives for us as a cluster, to bring together those who have the money and those who have the offer, and to help smaller tech companies with Russian products that need scaling up and enter this market. There are several tools, and I invite you all to get curious about it and learn more. The first thing for us, it is very important. We start from the Moscow city perspective, because it's about meeting basic infrastructural needs like transportation, energy, healthcare, education, etc. You understand what it's all about. So city procures large volumes of products for its own needs and to provide services to the citizens. And we put together over 100 queries, requests from different city departments and sub-departments such as Moscow Metro or Moscow Transport, major hospitals, and they formulated what they need. So they're ready to test new solutions that will replace those solutions which are exiting this market. So Moscow Innovative Cluster, that's the website. So those things have been published. You can go there and look it up. So it's not like we just published that and we moved on. No, it's not like that. The second part of this initiative, 3 weeks ago, we started pilot testing and we compensate costs of those pilots. Let's say you have a great technology, import substituting technology needed by the city, and you see that it meets that demand. It meets those requests. So, and unfortunately, there's a gap there, and the need will be growing. So we update those demands, and we see that you have a fit there. So you supply for a pilot, submit application for a pilot, and the demanding organization says, okay, great, we can test it. Let's go ahead with it. And we start a pilot. And your technology is piloted in that organization. We compensate up to 2 million rubles of your costs that may be incurred during the pilot, including salaries, so which is an unprecedented thing. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Normally, Moscow policies include compensation only of hard costs. So basically, there is a request. So you start a pilot, and so 2 million after the pilot. No, it's advance payments. So 50% in advance payments. So once we agreed that the pilot should go ahead, and once that program was launched and many applications to participate, there's a lot of interest that was generated, and if there's a great interest, we'll scale it. And our objective is to saturate the market with new products and with the things that the city needs. We also launched a service that helps to bring together producers and other producers to build a new chain. So naturally, we accumulate a major database of producers, not only in Moscow, but basically in all these sectors of national economy. And large businesses, medium businesses come to us and they tell us, without naming companies, so let's say one fairly well-known company comes to us, they produce household applications. They used to produce it abroad. Now they want to localize and also expand their product line. They tell us, we need any solutions. They should help us. And we also start to look for those solutions in the market, and we will publish those requests on our portal to make sure you find each other. Our main goal is to have the platform for building connections, for establishing them. So it's a major challenge, but at the same time, we see that there are many opportunities there. We should understand that niche, which is now vacant, and be proactive there. Alexei, let me continue with you. So there are two categories of consumers on your platform. So Moscow companies, businesses that publish their demands, and you find a matching company. And the second one is just Moscow itself, not a Moscow company, but Moscow bodies, departments, etc. They have their own needs. And oftentimes, for SMEs and especially developers with a technological product to be able to sell something to the city of Moscow as an economic entity. So 2 million may not matter here, but small company is not possible to follow all the procedures that city requires to be able to sell it. So they're just not able to launch such a pilot because it's not their fault. But what can you do about this? It's not a new problem. So a startup have a difficult time working with the city, but it's not only here. It's like that anywhere in the world for different reasons. We had a difficult and unfortunately failing process. So when we wanted to bring the city and startups, there was no connection between the two, unfortunately. But a working solution is when you have an integrator, when large, medium-sized businesses may be in the between. So that's one scenario that we use. The second scenario, which is possible for priority segments, when we say that we need in healthcare during the COVID period, we had that we need to have some solution. It doesn't matter. It's just super priority for us. So we just start working with a company. So after that pilot, once they pass the pilot phase, so it's a manual assistance when we help them figure out how procurement system works and how they can get the final result. Because the main barrier is not that the company may not participate financially or organizationally. The key barrier is that the company has no competencies or capabilities to boost those competencies, because procurement procedure is a separate procedure. You do have an expert. If you don't have such a person, you will have no very small chance to succeed and get some result there. So what capabilities Moscow Innovation Cluster has? So if there is a super priority project, let's say we have the pandemic and you need to get that solution in place, but now it's not the pandemic, now we have a different economic landscape and other changes, so manual solutions will be needed. So how many companies can get that assistance in that manual mode? Not very many. So it's not a panacea, it's an exception really from the general rule. So I spoke about the pandemic, and so the radical change in the stance of the city was all about it's no revelation, but still, before the pandemic, we talked about innovations in healthcare. It was a long process, a very painstaking process, but for industry people who work in their own paradigm, all new things are somewhat suspicious. So if you can avoid doing it, you don't do it, especially in medicine. But the situation drastically changed during the pandemic because the results were very required. It was a very harsh demand for it. So if you don't have traditional methods to get it, so you were motivated to do it. So same thing here today. So city clients have similar motivation. All those departments that operate municipal systems, you need to find that solution. And in fact, so that really boosted interest towards innovations and to be able to work. So when you mess with smaller companies, with smaller businesses, because organizationally it's difficult, but still it gives some results to you. And most importantly, now we have interest. Both parties are equally interested. Hallelujah.
Well, basically, Skolkovo is a service organization. We are building up different types of services, starting with registering the Russian software and then finishing with the search for the technologies for particular enterprises. This is a system of services. I think that we need to build up the consulting service on participating in state procurement. I think it's going to be most demanded. Honestly, I'm not just saying that this is going to be some... discussion in vacuum. I'm thinking on this right now already. Russia is a very interesting country, Alexander. We have been existing before the special military operation, and we all understood that we have great competences in the field IT, great education, lots of developers, and there are parts of IT development fields, such as, for example, computer security, where we are the leaders all over the world. On the other hand, we have been working with startups, and people have been saying that we have great products, we have great experts. And what is happening in the market? So in the market, there is this foreign vendor, that foreign vendor, and we are not being allowed there. But the situation has changed drastically. There are open niches where the guys can get to. But once again, this significant pillow and security net for the financial investments in order to overcome this first barrier, to have the first introduction and then to generate cash and to do the upscaling. So we don't have many examples of such experience. But once again, some of these companies which have been working for the foreign vendors are still in the country. They can be integrated. And once again, what is happening right now? Are these teams being integrated, and where are these people going from the foreign vendors? I think that Freed is one of the biggest hubs on supporting the IT projects from the point of view of amount of applications for the small business and large business, both. And the second question, I do know that some of the support measures have been changed. You're modifying yourself, you're trying to be more convenient and comfortable for the industry. And what was happening there? Where did the people go when we expect them to start working? And how are you modifying your work? Yes, thank you very much, dear colleagues, and thank you for this capability to meet the community, meet the developers. So in the morning we had this meeting with startups, and Kirill was moderating it in the very beginning. And once again, these new opportunities and concerns have been shared. To tell you the truth, the situation is absolutely unique. And we, as a foundation, took up a function of communication with this industry. And during the last 3 months, we have received about 7,000 offers and addresses from different IT companies. We have processed them, we classified them, we unified them, we generalized them, created particular regulatory documents and acts, got supported by the Ministry of Digital Developments, by WebRF Corporation as the unification platform, and we got support from the government of the Russian Federation. And this huge communication allowed us to change the normative documents, to get new rules and rights and laws for different grant financing provision. And I will build up on this a bit later. So, we have been conducting several video conferences per day, meeting them in person as well. And the matter of staff wasn't among the first dozen of questions. And once again, when the situation started developing, there were different announcements in the public area that there have to be some volumes of the experts moving to other countries. And yeah, it never came to be, actually. Yes, and we never heard anything like that from the companies. People were saying that the foreign companies were leaving, that their niches are vacant and free, and there has to be some shoulder from the government in order to accelerate our work in various priorities seen by the government of big customers who are moving to Russian software. We have seen that both SMEs are interested in this offers, and we could see different discounts for different provision of software for small and medium business. And last year we provided about 2,000 licenses for SMEs, and this year we are requesting the particular understanding of SMEs, what products they are requiring, so in order to transform the business properly. And there was an order by the President on measures on accelerated development of informational technologies. And we already saw that it is all about IT experts. It's about people. It's about mortgages. It's about credits, loans, grants for development, etc. Yeah, and everybody became IT experts, if you haven't noticed. Many companies became IT companies. Yeah, we actually have some signals that even some oil and gas companies are requalifying to be IT companies. If they are changing their codes, then the digital economy is going to be IT only, and the whole source of budget forming is going to be digital. These are special preferences, stimuli, and we as the communications center have received lots of requests from companies. Everybody has been sharing their ideas, what can be done, reconfigured and adopted. And we managed to rebuild our grant tools due to this. If there were procedures of expertise of reviewing various applications, we basically turned it upside down. The whole process is changed right now, and the company, when they're coming to us, they can apply using particular presentation on the state services portal, and experts of our companies are reviewing it all. And of course, applications are in great abundance right now. In the first 3 days, we have received about the same volume of applications through state services compared to just like the 4 months of the last year. This shows that the tools are demanded, and the companies are ready to work for long-term solutions, and their vision of the market being freed by various companies gives them unique opportunities. And speaking about Russian experts, indeed, Russian programmers and IT experts are the best in the world, and we conducted the international championship, and the Russian experts have shown that they are absolute best in the market. Yes, it's time to capitalize on it for the country. Indeed. You have been saying a very peculiar thing. So once again, we are all in this industry, but I'm not sure that everybody in the audience hall does understand how it actually works. Speaking about SMEs, how are you providing the grants, and how are you modifying the tools for the people to understand how to do it and for them to go on applying? Yes, everything was simplified. There is this website, the state services, everybody is using it, so it's both for the legal entities and for regular people. There are 2 banners on the main page. The first one in the carousel is the applications for cloud-based Russian software for SMEs. And second are the grants for the development of Russian software. We also rerouted the applications of different companies which didn't understand what tools they are requiring. They were thinking that whether it's Skolkovo Foundation or the Bortniks Foundation or its acceleration program of development of initiative and internet, etc. There are different banners there. Everything is out there on the website of the Foundation of the Informational Development of Technologies, and basically everything is cross-linked. So you won't miss it, that's for sure. You just look through the main page, and we host different webinars. Okay, what money can they expect? Why do we go to state services at all? Yes, for SMEs. This year, we are providing more than last year, about 2 million rubles for SMEs to receive various software with maximum check. No, there is no check for a license. We are just compensating 50% of the overall price. The entrepreneurs are buying the software they need. We have about 150 products right now, and we are expanding it day by day. If you are the developer of such solutions, you can actually apply and be included into this federal program. If you are an entrepreneur and you want the leading edge software, Russian-made software for your enterprises, you have 150 ready-made products for optimization of business. Everything can be seen on the state services webpage, so you can see the products there, and the entrepreneur is just buying the software, just clicking on the website of the developer how the discount is happening. So don't bother. Everything is just 50% cheaper, and everything which is not received by the developer is being compensated by us. Speaking about the grants of development of the long-term solutions, it was supported, and more than 10 billion rubles have been dedicated to this. And these procedures have been launched by us, and the average paycheck is quite hard to forecast. But once again, the grants are available from 20 to 500 million rubles. We have changed the conditions. Before that, it was up to 300 million rubles. And now we changed the procedure and the internal parameters of the projects. And the IT developers and the companies have always requested us for limitations of the prices of the development, so for us to expand it a bit. We introduced these changes. The ideology of these grants are as follows. The developers should be capable of hiring more experts to accelerate the development of their software and their introduction into the market, to replace what is leaving the market from abroad. Yes, I would like to have a little ad of Skolkovo Foundation. We are also supporting the developers. We are stimulating the demand using a special grant through the decree of the government 555. This is the introduction of the digital product, the pilot project, and there has to be the economic effect. There has to be a potential of scaling up. The paycheck of starting from 20 up to 300 million rubles. This is both budgetary, non-budgetary financing. 80% is financed by the budget, and once again the applicant is the company which receives the technology, but all API is still dedicated to the developer. And within this process of import replacement, we have this great amount of applications, and there are still limits. So please join this process. We have been talking about digital world. Alexander, thank you. And let us speak to a very interesting company indeed. This is a company which unites production, service, and digital solution. Whoosh company. I'm confident that most of you have been using these scooters by Whoosh, and we can see them all across the Russian Federation. And you are facing complications indeed. Since you are the Skolkovo resident, we are talking about the spare parts which have been coming from outside of Russian Federation. What is going to happen right now? Are you going to replace them with Russian-produced parts? So are we going to move to China right now, or are we talking about some local parts which are going to be used? And what are the most painful areas for you? Because we're talking about very complicated products, we're talking about mechanics, we're talking about the electronics, we're talking about materials, etc. How are you going to live right now? Yes, thank you, Kirill. Good day to everybody. Indeed, we are a hybrid company. We are both online and offline. We have production. We are producing both software and hardware products and electronics, etc. Lucky for us, we didn't have too much business with the so-called unfriendly states, as we call them now, and most of what has been procured was located in China. But starting from the very beginning of our projects, we have been producing the electronics ourselves. Did the Chinese guys raise up the price bar? Yeah, it's complicated actually, so the batteries are becoming more expensive, so all over the world here. Of course, some electronics is beginning to become more expensive, because COVID has shown this problem of chip scarcity, and those which are actually existing are there, so they are becoming more and more expensive. Yeah, basically you are not talking about the change of the logistics due to the special military operation. You are talking about the general change of the paradigm. Yes, indeed. But speaking about China, so some processors were American built, and we had these orders for these processors and we couldn't buy them out. And we have to move to other processors, Chinese ones. But at the same time, we are working with Ministry of Industry and Trade, and we are requesting the production of various chips here. We're talking about GPS module, for example.
Мне кажется, вот мы, знаете, достаточно много
And we believe that we're talking about
с 2014 года.
this for a very long time. We're talking about this replacement of imports. We have been doing this for so many years. There is this tendency to replace it. And right now, we have the capability. We can see the obvious demand in the market. We can see the vacuum, which is not going to be
Тут очень важно.
as is for a very long. So we need to be attentive in this very moment. So the companies right now, which are exist in the country, have to make sure that they don't miss this opportunity. So and companies are ready to pay for production in this country to mitigate some risks connected with logistics, with the exchange rate, and the political risks as well. And it's important to understand that all of us are looking for local suppliers, for spare parts, for mechanics, for plastic forms, and we have various molds, etc. So we are looking for suppliers who would be able to create the aluminum frames for these scooters, etc. And we can see that many companies are not ready for particular actions. But at the same time, most of the businesses in the country are ready to try things, even if the quality is not going to be good enough. They just need to see the long-term perspective and for it to be implemented within the nearest future, for us to have this wish from both the supplier and the customer, for them to implement and meet the expectations, because it is not happening overnight, but if the tendency is showed, then it's going to be the right movement. Okay, I have a question to you, and please, everybody, answer this question as well. You remember the first sanctions which appeared several years ago, and Russia actually replied very strictly. They closed the market for particular suppliers and vendors to sanction various creators of technological products. Speaking about agriculture, they have a long cycle of production, and we can see success out there. And the Russian products are being demanded right now. In this current situation, speaking about the technological products, and this is, I'm not the first one to ask this question, should we be strict to reply to the sanctions and to say, yes, we have the developments in this technological segments. We have been discussing this with Denis. Lithium, for example, the batteries. Let's raise the bar for the Chinese producers. So, and speaking about this scarcity, is going to push the developers to make our own batteries right now. Of course, it's controversial, I do understand this. But you yourselves are using the batteries which are being delivered from East. So, what do you think about it? I think that any closed-loop system which doesn't have external inputs is going to be unstable, extremely unstable. If we're going to be too strict to reply to the challenges, I think it's going to be completely wrong. It would prevent us from development, because the development is based on competition and this hive mind, which is actually pushing the progress in front. Okay, limiting competition is bad, I see. Yes, it's not about competition only. We're talking about the access to technologies. We're talking about the access to the market. I think that this cannot be done so radically and drastically. Artem, and what do you think? So what is your situation, speaking about your segment of business? Okay, so in general, we are not discussing the economic questions anymore. We're talking about politics right now. No, it's not about politics, it's economy. I'm just suggesting... No, I'm not suggesting. I'm just interested in understanding what do you think about this economic situation. To use the political situation in order to get additional levers of influence for the Russian developers to roll out their production and their technological products.
And you're right. It provides opportunities for us, but it may be wrong to compare sanctions in the agricultural sector because there was no ban to import technologies. It was a ban on import of products and technologies, agricultural technologies. Being a person who talks directly to agricultural producers, and we would like to roll out our technologies there. They use only Western technologies. If Western technologies weren't there, we're not sure how agricultural producers here, if they would be successful. If we talk about future, so we talk about the depth of technological process, of processing depth. Yeah, we are missing some technologies. We have no access to them anymore. We want to replace them. If we talk about radio electronic components, like the previous speaker who talked about them, about microchips which are produced in the States or in Taiwan. So we use Taiwan produced because Americans are not available and Russian chips are not there. So you're switching to Taiwan-made, or we switch to Chinese ones. Or Milander is a local developer. We contacted them, we visited them. The Ministry of Industry and Trade introduced us, but they are not up to the level. It may take some time before they're there, but they can supply, let's say, 200 items per year. But wait a minute, we need thousands of them now, and because we're expanding, we will need 100,000. But they said our production capacities are limited, and also we work for the military. So that thing is missing. So if we bring up our tariffs, or we will put a ban on their imports, we'll just use microelectronics because Russian producers are not enough to meet the demand. We need to expand that production. I'm talking about that as a specialist in microelectronics, but to boost that production, so like microchips, it will take a lot of investments, and private sector is not enough. State participation will be required. If the state is ready to do it, to boost that production, so once it's done, then we will have those options, and maybe we can, act paternally to protect Russian producers, but we're not in that situation yet. I understand. So any business is a combination of segments of links, interfaces. I'm simplified. It's suppliers, buyers, finance for businesses, partners you collaborate with. So we are in the current situation. We are here today. So considering these four components, so what connections, what links are most critical for you? So on which ones do you focus the most? Of course, all of them are important, but still, I would like to put this question to Alexander for an IT company. So where is the main gap there, and how can you fill them? It's with the suppliers? Alexander, Dmitry, and Artyom, all of you? Most likely, we need to see the whole picture. And so you have a client, so there's a lot of demand. Because companies leave, licenses are being revoked, they stop servicing, and we see that those products are used in other products, etc. And open source solutions become an analog, and we get some feedback on them, and some platforms exit. So even communities that work in open source solutions have those difficulties. So we need to find developers and teams who are able to create some, like GitHub platform, to develop it for Russian open source developers to avoid those risks going forward. So we see these direct communications when they look for those solutions. Both developers and customers are involved in those communications, and we hope to have a large, major roadmap of developing to match partners and support projects which have the greatest demand by sectors and industries to substitute solutions which are exiting. So in IT, it's suppliers, second and third level suppliers. So when we talk about basic fundamental products, so did I get it right? There are different segments. So we have critical infrastructure, IT infrastructure, so which are in the first risk zone, and developers need to focus on them specifically and to produce those solutions for which there is greatest demand. At the same time, developers and suppliers have a chance here, so the main link that should be in place, it's right there, right, Dmitry? Kirill, it seems to me that one doesn't work without the other at all. If we forget about suppliers or about finances, it will not work. But we have a person here, we have Alexander, who have billions on his budget to support IT. So it's there, and clients are there, so there's a lot of demand. It's true, but on the other hand, we know that the current rate is like, and about lending from banks at what rates they are done. So in a long-term perspective, it's not a workable situation. And so people work on the current problems. So to overcome this problem with suppliers, and then financing issues will be, because you cannot live with that key rate for a long time. And if that situation persists, we'll have a problem with clients, consumers as well, because consumer power, purchasing power will decline. So we have to balance all those things and prioritizing different things. So it's a complex business and complex problems that you face, and priority should be established, determined. I agree with Dmitry. It's a complex problem, but I would focus just Alexander, because you have suppliers and clients. So clients can be classified as pioneers, active actors who know how to solve problems, so their demand is clear. They're looking for their import substituting companies, and they're companies who look for that, and they know the problem, but they don't know what their request is. They have not formulated it, and they're afraid to invest into this, and there are companies who are not aware of the problems yet. So they're just hiding somewhere. They're like those ostriches. So they just want to wait out. So maybe gray imports of components will start, and maybe the whole thing will be over. So this is just waiting for, hoping for luck. So on the one hand, we talk about a great demand, and on the other hand, we should understand that it's a potential one for the most part. It hasn't been formulated, and it hasn't been brought all the way to us. So there is this time lag there, and hopefully that time will be here eventually, because customers will eventually need to understand, because they're not there yet. Most of them have not understood what their needs are. And speaking of suppliers, okay, of course logistics will need to be reworked, and components will be more expensive because of the COVID lag, and radio electronic components, and some of them cannot be purchased because they're produced in unfriendly countries. So there's some difficulties with suppliers too. I have a partner, for example. He is involved in very specific activities. They buy only specific microcontrollers, and those microcontrollers are used for American military, among other things, but they're produced in China. So they have a contract with the Chinese, prepaid contract, but the Chinese received a letter from the US that they cannot supply it anymore. So he's shocked by this. So there are some difficulties with suppliers out there, and hopefully we'll find solutions. And I see as key main things, it's both orders and suppliers that can meet them. Thank you all, Thanks to all the speakers, lots of open opportunities. The money is there. There are support tools there. We have clients, and you need to work with the client, with the customer, be proactive and explain what gaps are and how your products can fill the existing gaps in solutions. And also development institutions, they should shake us up to make sure we're participating, helping, and government does a lot to provide tools, to give those tools, to bring them to your hands, to provide linking for import substitution. Thank you all, and let's move on with the Startup Village. So let's thank the participants of this session with a long round of applause. And to warm up, among other things, I was very happy to see so many interested faces. There's so many of you here, and we've shared so much information with you. So let me tell you about what will happen at Startup Village sites today and tomorrow. Besides the main program, there are multiple activities that will be taking place, and you can see the list of them on our website. 8 wonderful ways to spend your time here at Startup Village. So some of the recommendations: Rosatom and a Russian Quantum Center booth, so you can see some solutions on a quantum computer, an operating quantum. So NTC, TMK booth is there to learn about seamless education, how technologies and education are merged, pitching and networking. If that's your focus, you should visit Adventureland Challenge, pitch session of Startup School and from Skolko Ventures. Come and listen to strongest technological teams, entrepreneurs, and networking, speed dating format to find future partners, and long-awaited funding for your project. Even though submission of applications for pitches has been closed, you can still meet experts and to do it in person. Skoltech will have a large-scale pitch session for 3.5 hours and 24 projects. Also, professors will be speaking, and there will be some lively discussions. And I insist that you visit front office for innovative projects and entrepreneurs at the Department of Innovative Development of Moscow, their booth, that brought together all those helpful things with startups. You can also find European mineral water, no gas in it. You can meet Skolkovo Foundation experts at their booth, and also buy cool merch by Nico Firm that creates premium corporate apparel, and it's sold around the world. And also Skolkovo Regions booth will have a quiz for you on Russian regions with guaranteed gifts. And this is something for you to enjoy. Many interesting speeches, presentations, and projects from Tatarstan, Khanty-Mansiysk, and Novosibirsk regions. And I highly recommend to visit the Sakha Republic Yakutia booth. So vivid presentations of the Arctic project and innovative projects in Yakutia in survival in extreme northern conditions and healthcare, prizes, quizzes, Yakutia movies, etc. Many other interesting things. So in a few seconds, we will start our grand opening ceremony. So please don't go away.
но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
Я верю, что сама выбираю, какой я буду завтра. Я могу выбрать быть сильнее, быстрее, легче, а могу проиграть. Но меня это не остановит. Мой выбор — уверенно двигаться к своей цели. Верь в свой выбор. World Class.
тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
ВК-звонки доступны везде и без ограничений. В 4К и с активным шумоподавлением. Будьте всегда на связи в ВК-звонках.
Встречайте приложение ВК-клипы. Удобный видеоредактор. Уникальные маски и эффекты. И стильные фильтры для обработки. Еще быстрее, проще, вертикальнее. Теперь в отдельном приложении ВК-клипы. Место встречи талантов.
Привет! Классно шьешь, варишь, печешь и вообще что-то производишь в Москве? Тогда сейчас самое время поверить в то, что ты делаешь, заявить о себе и занять свое место на рынке, пока другие не заняли. Смотри, это твоя дверь в новый мир. Открывай и узнай, чем мы можем тебе помочь. Москва-24 для бизнеса. Давай с нами.
Журнал «Эксперт» — это российский и международный бизнес, общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» – настоящий деловой журнал.
ВК-звонки доступны везде и без ограничений. В 4К и с активным шумоподавлением. Будьте всегда на связи в ВК-звонках.
Встречайте приложение ВК-клипы. Удобный видеоредактор. Уникальные маски и эффекты. И стильные фильтры для обработки. Еще быстрее, проще, вертикальнее. Теперь в отдельном приложении ВК-клипы. Место встречи талантов.
Классно шьешь, варишь, печешь и вообще что-то производишь в Москве? Тогда сейчас самое время поверить в то, что ты делаешь, заявить о себе и занять свое место на рынке, пока другие не заняли. Смотри, это твоя дверь в новый мир. Открывай и узнай, чем мы можем тебе помочь. Москва-24 для бизнеса. Давай с нами.
Журнал «Эксперт» — это российский и международный бизнес, общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» — настоящий деловой журнал.
Тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
Я верю, что сама выбираю, какой я буду завтра. Я могу выбрать быть сильнее, быстрее, легче, а могу проиграть. Но меня это не остановит. Мой выбор — уверенно двигаться к своей цели. Верь в свой выбор. World class.